Hey everyone, so I've got a problem I'm trying to work through whereby I want to take a piece of CLS like that and I want to attach it to the middle of some MDF. And you could easily just screw through there, but what I want to do is use Dominos for a bit of extra strength, Dominos and screws I guess. And I would like to put 4 5x30 Dominos in there. Two reasons: one, because I've got tons of 5x30 Dominos and a 5mm cutter and I don't have the other sizes. Second reason is that this is 18mm MDF, so if I had a bigger domino and I was plunging through with the bigger dominoes, I'd probably come out the other side, or I'd have to work out some system where I go further into here. So anyway, what I want to do is take 4 5x30 Dominos, put them approximately in the corners, attach it into the middle there. Now obviously putting the holes in here is dead easy, you can do that any way I want. Replicating the exact spacing of those holes into the middle of here is the trick. I've got to say thank you to Peter Millard from 10 Minute Workshop. I'll link to his channel. I asked on his forum and he gave me an excellent way of doing it. If the wood was like this, by referencing off of the bench, you come 10mm up because that's where the domino cutter center is. Excellent if I'd thought about this in the early stages. I didn't. What I'm building is a cat tower and the uprights are going to be scratching posts, and I have already wound a load of string around here and secured it with glue. So for me, I've got to account for the thickness of the rope, and it's not terribly, I don't know if you can see, it's stuck down, but it's not going to be consistent enough to really kind of do that easily. So I think what I'm going to have to do for mine is make my first mortise and then reference off of that first mortise in 2 dimensions with spacers to get a consistently repeatable pattern of alignment between the 4. It's probably easier if I show you. Hang on a sec. Okay, so ideally what I would like is for my dominoes to be in all 4 corners reasonably symmetrically, like that. That would be fantastic, but referencing off of the sides of the wood itself is going to be tricky, and also those faces don't exist in the middle of a plank of MDF anyway. You know, when I come to put that there, there's nothing here to reference from. Well, I suppose I could set up stick down a block of wood, but anyway, I've got the rope around it, that's the problem. So what I'm going to have to do is make my first mortise, wherever it is, let's say that one, and get that kind of roughly where I want it to be. And then I'm going to have to use consistent spacers to come up and consistent spacers to come across so that I can replicate that when I make my first mortise in the MDF. The downside of this, and I'm going to draw this a little bit exaggerated, is that I might not be symmetrical in the corner. So I make that first one, then I come spacing across. I could end up being there, and I might not be at the same distance to the top either. I might be more like that, which would still be okay strength-wise. This is exaggerated. I'm hoping I'll be able to get it closer to the corners and, you know, the top line further up, but the risk I'm running by doing it like this is that I'm not going to have them all nicely centered on the piece of wood. That's fine. Strength-wise, I think that'll be okay. The obvious challenge at this point is, you know, I'm only making a cat scratching tower. Why don't I just screw it together and be done with it? Because it's just some cats jumping on some things, and that's a fairly sound argument. I want to work through this problem. I might never ever need to use this solution ever again, however I come up with it, but I enjoy tinkering around in the garage. I'm a hobbyist woodworker, sitting here scratching my head, solving these kind of problems, thinking about it. It's actually enjoyable for me. Might be excruciating for you watching, but for me, I want to use dominoes. I want to use 5x30s in the corners and screws, and give it kind of as much strength as I probably can, because there's going to be cats jumping up and down there, and that's a fairly tall bit of wood to be wobbling around with a cat jumping up and down on top of it. So let's see how we get on. So the first problem I've got to contend with is the fact that when I put this flat, because I'm going to clamp this down to the bench when I make the mortises, obviously, when I put this flat, there's this gap here. So the domino, even though the center of the cutter here is 10mm up from the bench, I don't think 10mm is going to be enough to clear this when you look at the two together. It's a fair way down. So I found a bit that will help. Oddly, I bought 6mm sisal rope here for my scratching post, but weirdly, I tried a 6mm bit and it wasn't high enough, but a 9mm bit of MDF brings it pretty much up to the perfect level, making me question whether I actually bought 9mm sisal rope, to be honest with you. But anyway, I'm pretty sure I bought 6mm because the 9mm was more expensive. So that solves that problem. I can get the Domino, or the DF500 rather, level with that. So we're back to being 10mm inbound of the wood as we have it clamped to the bench here. So that's good. The next problem is I need to have something at the side, or at the side to come inwards to give me a consistent point of reference to come in with spacers to get my vertical placing, horizontal placing, whichever way around it is. Now, taking a look at the domino, the annoying thing about coming inbound on this side, you've obviously got the dust collection, that comes out quite a way. Well, actually before that. So the first thing I thought was that the domino would have nice milled faces on the side. This is when I was thinking about it in the house before I came out to the garage. It doesn't. It's got bolts, levers, lots of things sticking out there, which is pretty annoying. So you can't use the whole side faces because they ain't flat. But what is flat is this bit along the bottom and this bit up the side. I don't know if it's like a truly milled flat surface or anything. There probably isn't, but it's good enough for what I want it for. And that is, amazingly, pretty much 6mm high. That is a bit of 6mm MDF and it butts up to that beautifully. So if I use that for spacers, I avoid the dust port, I avoid the levers, anything that might get in the way basically. So I can use that, I can use cut strips of this as spacers to move it sideways. So I've got a way of moving it up by just putting bits of MDF underneath it. There's a 9mm bit that I use to start with, but I'll also add extra bits to lift it up further for the second row. And I've got a way of bringing it in by using strips of 6mm MDF at whatever spaces I need. Like I say, this is an elaborate solution to a problem that probably doesn't really exist, but it's the type of thing I enjoy thinking through and working through, so I'm going to do it. All right, so I've solved getting the domino up and across in 2 dimensions to reference it consistently. Next problem is I've made a couple of marks here, vertical marks, and where I think I want the mortices to go. That's 20mm in, so it gives you 10mm clearance, 10mm for the centre on each side. So that should work okay. So if I pop that there and I pop the domino here, you might not be able to see this, to be honest. Let me see if I can film through that window. It's really hard to see, but you can basically see that the center line of the domino is nowhere near this. You know, it's here. It's even as tight as I can possibly get it to the fence, it's actually in line with that one, not this one. So what I've got to do is space the wood out a bit. So that's fine. I've got some blocks of MDF, which I'll pop down the side there and down the side there. That now gives me a nice spacing out. Now, obviously I've got this lever in the way here, so I need to space this out a little bit. To save you the boredom of seeing it, I've measured it, and it is actually, funnily enough, 18mm, but I've still cut a strip of 6mm anyway. So if I put the domino up against that, and I put it up against the thing when it's spaced, hopefully you can see that pencil mark just underneath the plastic window. You can see the pencil marks lining up quite nicely, not perfectly, but quite nicely with the center line of the domino window. Right, so I've got that piece. I've also got a smaller piece. I've marked out on both of them. These lines are both 20mm in from the edges on both. So I know I can get to that first line easy enough with my little 18mm spacer. And there it is. That brings me into this line. To get across the other one, I'm going to have to cut a spacer that's exactly the distance between these two and exactly the distance between these two. So I've measured that one, it's 48, and that one is 30. So I'm going to cut those 2 spacers now. So there we go, 48mm, 30mm, 18mm to come in initially from the edge, and I've also got a 20mm that I was playing with earlier that I don't need for this project, but I might as well keep in the box with the domino. Next thing is, let's get everything clamped down. I'm going to use this bit on top just to kind of try and provide a bit more even pressure clamping. It's probably not going to sit perfectly flat because of the string being a bit annoying, but it is what it is. Like I say, this doesn't have to be super accurate, it just has to be consistent. So that's what I'm going for here. All right, so I can already feel that rolling to the side, so I'm going to clamp it in the middle here, try and get a bit further over. I don't have a nice MFT, so I'm just using the hole that my router goes in the bench. I do have these tracks, but they're not really strong enough for clamping down this, just using for fences. All right, next up, let's get our bit of 9mm. That gives us our new floor, so that we're at the same height as the bottom of the piece. 18mm spacer to give us our initial distance in from the edge. And then we're going to go like this. We're going to make a mortise, add the 48mm spacer, mortise, and then the distance I need to come up, very luckily, is exactly 18mm. So we'll add a bit of 18mm. That brings us up to the next line. 18mm spacer, in, 48mm spacer, in. And then when I've finished it all, I'll mark which mortise I used as the first one so that I can, when I'm referencing onto the MDF, I can make sure I sort of start in the same position and then space out equally from that point. All right, moment of truth. Here's the first ones going in. Right, let's have a look. You know what? Hang on, I'll get the camera on it. That isn't too bad for symmetry. The bottom row is a little bit further up. There's a bit more of a gap there to the edge than that one. Distance in from the edge though, I think is pretty perfect on both of them. Perfect as it needs to be anyway. That and a couple of screws up the middle should hold pretty well with the cat jumping all over it. Right, let's get the rest done. So there we go. I think that's come out even more symmetrical on this smaller one, to be honest with you. They're pretty equal distances from the edge. Just pop the old purple dot on just to show me which one I did first, and then I know which one I need to space out from when I do the MDF. Right, next up we do the MDF. This is the piece that is going to form the top tier of the cat tower. There's the cat tower. I've done a little bit of marking out off camera just because it's boring. This line is the center line of where the dominoes go. I transferred it to the edges on the pieces so that I can mark it down here. Then I've marked a line 10mm back. Incidentally, these things, absolutely fantastic for stuff like this. You want to mark a line 10mm back. These are metric setup blocks, so they are 10mm by 20mm by 40mm. So you want to mark it 10mm back, dead easy. You just plonk that on the line. Anyway, get yourself some of those if you can. So yeah, 10mm back because that's where the fence needs to go to bring the centre line of the dominoes 10mm in. This is the vertical centre line of the first domino, the one that I marked in purple for each of those. And then that arrow means that with my spacers, I'm going to be working out in that direction. So across that way and up that way. Same with this one, but this way I'm walking this way. So up that way, across that way. So time to stick down some fences and get working really. Okay, so that's these two fences stuck down with the double-sided tape. Again, thanks to Peter Millard for this. This really is the best double-sided tape. It comes off so much easier. It's not about how much it goes on, it's about how it comes off. And this stuff comes off great. So now I can just take the domino, put it up against those two. That will give me my first mortise, and then I use my spacers to come out from there. So let's get it done. Okay, so you can see I did my first mortise on the narrow setting, and then I've done the rest on the medium setting, the slightly wider setting. So that's kind of my anchor mortise, if you like, and then the others a bit bigger to account. I want to try, see if I can test fit this without removing these fences, just in case. See how it goes. I'm not sure I've got the clearance, but we'll try. Yeah, I haven't got the clearance. All right, I'll take off this fence. Look how easily that tape comes off. That's why it's worth paying the extra for the 3M. Is that down nice? Comes off without any effort. Success! That's amazing. That is a lovely tight fit. Beautiful. That is going to be plenty strong enough. Perfect. All right, let's do the other one. Double success. Perfect. So there we go. I'm pretty happy with how that's turned out. Fixed in nicely at both ends, or it will be once we get the material on it. I think that's worked out very well. Obviously it was time consuming. If you were building cat towers in a professional capacity, you wouldn't bother with this. But in terms of working through a problem, sorting it out and getting the alignment working in 2 dimensions, pretty happy. Thanks for watching, everyone.